I'm honored to be here in this group. I believe this community's been going for over 100 years. So it's and having seen the principles that you of your the way you think and the things you kind of discuss, this feels really appropriate to bring self-compassion here today. A little bit about me. I'm a coach, a supervisor. I live on a boat. Some people wonder what I'm doing in a railway carriage. No, this is a narrow boat, and I travel around a lot on the boat. Sometimes you find me playing a tuba, and I also race paddle boards, not at the same time as playing the tuba. I thought about that, but yeah, I founded Rethinkly that was originally called ProReal. Its origins are in psychodrama, which is kind of embodiment of thoughts and feelings. I also studied storytelling and some shadow work and clean language. So for those of you in the coaching world, those names might make sense to you. I designed it on the principles of symbolism and metaphor to deepen sense making, to get us beyond using just words. And you'll see that today in your experience, I hope. And I wanted to use user content. So it's not going to teach anything explicitly, but you bring your own user content for you to learn. We've had 13 papers published, and the headlines for that are mainly around increased self-awareness and insight. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Access to insights and accelerated learning are used in one-to-one coaching with the software, in self-help, and in large groups, the same as we have today. So what we're going to do today is we've got three parts to today's experience. I'm going to give you access to the software so as you can have a play with it. I'm going to teach you a bit about the user interface. Then I'm going to take you through the guided experience to explore self-compassion, and then we'll have a plenary at the end to have a chat about what that experience was like. So this is going to be a visual journey into your sense making using a virtual world with avatars. And you're going to be able to explore your relationship with self-compassion. And self-compassion, as you probably know, being absolutely essential to our confidence and well-being and to leadership. Firstly, a little bit of audience participation. If you think about a time when someone you love and care for was suffering because they made a mistake or they screwed up somehow or another, how did you respond? What did you respond with? Can you recall? Probably some level of some level of compassion. And I wondered if you, when you have made a mistake, or you maybe haven't come up to standard, if you had the same level of self-compassion for yourself. So the research says that you probably, or we probably won't give ourselves the same level of self-compassion as you might give someone else. And that's something I'd like to explore today in the virtual world. So we all have the capacity and capability to be compassionate, but we're not always that great at giving it to ourselves. So this exercise is a chance to reflect on that. I'm grateful to the work of Paul Gilbert and the Compassionate Mind Foundation. And I think from all my years as a coach and a supervisor, I think this is probably the most important subject I could ever be working with. When you get into the virtual world, no data is going to be collected. When you close the browser after using it, all the data is going to be lost. So what I'd like you to do is you can come off mute for this part of it. I'd like you to click on that URL and click to start the exercise and get into the virtual world. And you can go into full screen using the diagonal arrows on the top right-hand corner of your keypad. So you should be able to see a green floor in front of you, a little bit like a circular disc. Fantastic, step one. Okay, you can move your camera around by using the arrows in the bottom right-hand corner of your keypad, or if you've got touch screen, that'll work too, or using your cursor. So you can move your move your camera around. Have a go at doing that. To make the camera go up, you use the forward arrow and shift at the same time. To make it go down, the back arrow and shift, and then using control and the forward and back arrows makes it tilt up and down. There's a few simple camera movements. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is add an avatar. So on the right-hand side, you've got an Add tab at the top. Click on the Add tab and just click on the avatar at the top. And it should appear on the platform in front of you. Now on the right-hand side, you've got what's called an Edit panel. And just give this avatar a name. You type in a name. And underneath the name, you've got a selection of colors. So let's say this is you. So make this avatar you. And then when you think of yourself, what color comes to mind? And if none of those colors work for you, just click the plus icon and you can use any of the colors of the rainbow. We can't quite do polka dots or stripes yet. Underneath that, you've got size. You can change the size of the avatar, and the size is going to relate to importance or confidence. Under size, you can give the avatar a voice. So write a few words in the speech thought caption. What's this avatar saying? And give the avatar an emoji. You've got a selection of emojis there. And just to the right of the emoji, you've got postures. Have a look at the postures. You can bring your avatar to life by giving it a posture. There's a whole range of postures there. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is to add another avatar. So just a reminder, click on Add. And by the way, you won't have to remember all this. I'm going to remind you as we go along when it gets to the exercise. So don't worry too much about remembering. Add another avatar, give it's the name of someone else. And when you think of them, what color comes to mind? The colors and the names help with identity. And it might be a different size to the first one you've added. And put a few words of gobbledygook in there. This is only a practice. You're going to be deleting it in a minute. And give it an emoji and a posture. Okay, by now you should have two avatars in the world in front of you. I know some of the latecomers are doing a bit of a catch up. When you've clicked on the link to access the virtual world, go into full screen and click Add. And add a couple of avatars. Okay, you can drag and drop avatars to move them around. If you hover your mouse over the head of the avatar, you'll see a little white icon, change of view icon appear, and that means you view from that avatar. So have a go at changing views, view from each of the avatars. Or there's an option to viewing from different avatars, and that's to click the Views tab, and you'll see a list of the avatars on the Views tab, and then you can change the views from there. To go back into roaming view, there's a button at the top of your screen called roaming view, believe it or not, and that'll detach you from the avatar. Now, what I'd like you to do is add some symbols. Again, go to the Add tab, and underneath the avatar, there's symbols like a fire, a wall. There's an elephant, all sorts of things. Again, just a single tap or click on that symbol and it'll appear in front of you. And you can give a symbol a name and change its size. So the symbols are there to help tell a story. This is great, particularly when we have teams. You get them to add an elephant and all of a sudden the undiscussable becomes discussable. It may be that there's a minefield in the relationship, so that sits between the two avatars. Okay, so for this exercise today, that's all you're going to need to be able to do. You're going to need to be able to add avatars and label them. This labeling process is important, and I'll talk you through that as we go. And it's important you can change views and view from different avatars, as well as go in roaming view, and you can add symbols. That's all you need to be doing today. I'm going to go into a guided exercise in a moment, and what I'd like you to do is to delete everything you've added in front of you. So if you double click on an avatar and click delete, it'll go. Double click on a symbol and click delete, it'll go. I'd like you to end up with a blank canvas, because I'm going to talk you through how to set up a scene. Take a couple of deep breaths. Just a little bit of recontracting. I'm going to guide you through step by step. I'm going to go at a certain pace, which for some is going to be too slow and others too fast. I'll try and get it about right, but forgive me, I'm asking for forgiveness in advance. If you don't like some of the steps I'm giving you, you want to go off piste, feel free to do that. Okay, I'd like you to think of a situation where you were hard on yourself. You might have beaten yourself up for something. Maybe you made a mistake or you didn't quite deliver something to a high enough standard. See if you can think of one of those moments when you might have been quite hard on yourself. Okay, that's the scene we're going to set up here. So what I'd like you to do is to add an avatar to be you. Click on add. Yeah. And give it your name. And when you think of yourself, what color comes to mind? Don't worry about the size for now. And what I'd like you to do is to add 2 or 3 avatars around you to remind you of that scene. So what was going on? So this is a scene where you were pretty hard on yourself, beating yourself for having made a mistake or not being good enough. What was going on around you? Who was there? So again, go to click add an avatar, and then you can drag and drop them into the right position around you, give them a name. You've got a couple of minutes for doing this, so don't worry. As you add each avatar, give them a color. And it's just maybe some of the avatars are bigger than others. And as you add the other avatars, what are they saying? Add that in the speech thought caption. And add their postures. And it may be that a symbol or two could help tell the story as well. Remember, if you're adding symbols, do remember to give them a name, and you can change the size of them too. Just less than a minute on this. Okay, so you should have you and 2 or 3 other avatars and some symbols in a little scene that's describing a moment when you were giving yourself a hard time. Now what I'd like you to do is to add the part of you that's giving you a hard time. So I'd like you to add an avatar. And this is the part that judged you or judges you or criticizes you. criticizes you for making a mistake, not being good enough, or whatever it is. You can give this part of you a name and a voice and a posture, and write in a speech thought caption. What's it saying to you? This is the part of you that's telling you you've made a mistake or you're not up to standard or whatever it is. You know. And change its size if needed. And position it. Where did you experience this judge or this critical part of you? Right, okay. What I'd like you to do now is to view from you. So to view from you, you hover your mouse over the head of your avatar or and click on the icon there or go to the Views tab and view from you and have a look around. Is this what can happen? Or what happened? So to turn the avatar, you use the arrows in the bottom right-hand corner of your keypad and just have a look. Okay, that's the scene set up for that moment when um, your critic or judge was present with you. So you have a capacity for self-compassion. You're compassionate you. And I'd like to add that as an avatar somewhere slightly away from this first scene that you've set up. You're going to reposition it later. I'd like you to add an avatar that's going to be your compassionate you. And this is the part that unconditionally treats you with care and understanding. It's a part that accurately gets your thoughts and feelings without over-identifying or exaggerating. And it's a part of you that recognizes that challenges are a part of being of the human experience and we all make mistakes. So give this compassionate you a name and a color and a posture. This is of your own. What would this part of you be saying? Or what do you know your compassionate you could say? So back to the earlier question about what would you say to someone else that was in trouble? That'll give you some idea of what you can put in the speech thought caption of your compassionate you. Okay, now you've got your compassionate you on this in the scene. I'd like you to locate it to where you would have experienced it in the scene you created earlier. So in the little scene where your judge or critic is present, where was your compassionate you when this was going on? Just experiment with that. Where do you think it was? Was it close? Was it far away, behind or in front? Could you see it? It may help if you view from you and then position the compassionate you. So now just ask yourself the question, what got in the way of the compassionate you being really present, or so present that the judge wouldn't have turned up? So was it a resistance to change, or some limiting self-belief, or a story you tell yourself, some narrative of some kind? What was it that meant that your compassionate you wasn't present for you in the first place? It may help if you try to bring the compassionate you so close that the critical you moves back. Experiment and see what happens. Is it important for you to have the critical judge in your life? Use symbols to help. I'll give you a few moments to experiment with this one. Barriers to our compassionate self being close to us can be our resistance to change, so holding on to an experience. Maybe the critic is protecting us from something. It can be a limiting belief about you and your life, and it can be a story you tell yourself. Those are the things that may keep the compassionate self at a distance. Here's a couple of things you might want to try, and it's called a role change or role reversal. I'd like you to view now from the judging part of you, the critic that you'd set up, and turn and face towards self-compassion. What would it say to your self-compassion, this part of you? So viewing from your judging part towards the self-compassion, what might it say? And if you could view from your compassionate self, so again, change views, and are you viewing towards the judge or the critic? What would it say about your judge or critic? And the last bit of the experiment really here was if you wanted your compassionate self to be more present with you, what would you change here? What would you change in your thinking, or what belief might you need to let go of? Might you, what was the barrier to self-compassion being closer to you and being more accessible? And we're coming towards the end of the process now. One of the last things I'd like you to do is view towards your compassionate you. Maybe take a photograph or get it somehow or another. You can do a screen grab and get in the practice of knowing that it's there when you need it. And go into roaming view and just step up and have a look at the story below. To go into roaming view and climb up using the forward arrow with shift. Again, you can take a screen grab or a photograph. Just before we close. Okay, you don't have to close the world. You can keep that open for now, but the moment you close it, all the data will be deleted. So you'll lose the work you've done. Before we lose anybody else, can I just say thank you? What an honor it's been to be here this evening with you. Thank you for your lovely feedback. There's more exercises on the landing page. You'll see them there if you want to go and experience some more